evening, everybody, and welcome to the All Portable Discussion Zone, a bi-weekly live stream all about amateur radio portable ops. My name is Charlie. Call sign is November Juliet 7 Victor, and we don't have our show's two co-hosts today. Dan is out of town, and Brian he may be along. I'm not sure, but I'm pleased to introduce to you tonight's guest, Kurt AD0WE. Welcome back, Kurt.
Well, hello, Charlie. I must say it is a pleasure. It's been a while. I enjoyed the face-to-face conversation that we had back in Dayton here
Yes.
probably almost 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's wonderful talking to you again.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Maybe we might get into that just a little bit too, because well, we'll get into that in a minute. But let me just also welcome those of you who are watching live in the chat room. If you have comments or questions, please go ahead and leave them. I got my work cut out for me because it's just me running the show today. But I'll try to grab your comments and questions and put them up if we have if I can catch them while I'm still running the interviewing Kurt here. Also, don't forget that this show is converted to a podcast and is available through most podcast players up about 24 hours after the show, sometimes earlier than that. So with that, let's go ahead and get going. I apologies to those of you who might be trying to listen on Instagram. I've got a message here that says I need to retry that. I'm not probably going to mess with that today, but I've been trying to also live stream on Instagram and figure that out. Today is not a good day for it, so we'll just move on and figure that out another day because I don't want to move my attention away from that. So, okay, so let's just get caught up on a few things. What we've been up to the last little bit. As Kurt said, we actually had an eyeball QSO, as people like to say, at Dayton. And Kurt, you were at Dayton then for a specific reason. Can you share with us what that was?
Yeah, so I was accepting the CW Ops Award. There were 3 people who were given it that year, and it's really an amazing opportunity to be recognized and to continue to give back to the CW community. There are just so many wonderful people, and it's just a great opportunity to continue to come to know many fine men and women all across the world. And on rare occasions, it's even extra delightful to have an opportunity to have a face-to-face QSO. And, it's amazing how often, I feel like I'm at the right place at the right time to really recognize opportunities to advance learning Morse code or just how to improve the website. And in fact, I still have in the back of my mind an idea that you brought forward to help people more easily find the content that they're looking for on the Morse Code Ninja website, YouTube channel. Now I have multiple courses, not just the single course, and I have over 300 unique practice sets, and that can be a little challenging to find what you're looking for. And your idea, the idea to create tracks for common goals, that's still on my to-do list.
Yeah, but that's good. So since we're on your website topic, would you say your website is more for beginners or more for people who are advanced, or all the above?
I think all the above. So I've tried to divide the website into a page really dedicated to courses, and the main course is for beginners to initially learn the characters, the 40 common characters that we use, the letters, numbers, pro signs. But there's also some additional courses that I've created that are perhaps for intermediate. For instance, I have some instant word recognition courses, and for beginners that are struggling with instant character recognition and copying words, I've also added some dedicated practice sets for practicing the mental dynamics, which we can dig into. But so there's one page, all the courses, and then on the uh, practice page, that's where you'll find all the 300 plus unique practice sets, and those range from just copying individual characters at a time, all the way to uh, a whole story. So
Yeah.
from beginners to advanced,
Yeah,
definitely.
definitely. Yeah. I know that, well, first we might want to back up in just a minute and talk about what instant character recognition is and some of those, that term and a few others. But I would like to say that, I find your materials very useful for me trying to get my speed up. And also, I have a really, I've spent a lot of time working on copying specific things, basically contest type stuff, so that, because I do soda and poda, and so I can copy a call sign at maybe 40 words a minute, and maybe even most of the QSO back and forth. But when I want to have an actual QSO with somebody, it drops to about 15 words per minute, believe it or not. And that's a big dynamic. And your practice sessions are what is allowing me to get my conversational CW up.
Yes, you bring up a good point, and it's one that many students initially don't recognize. Like someone who's been on the air using CW, they'll ask you, well, how fast can you go? Even for me, the answer is, well, it depends on what I'm copying. So if they're like something truly hard, like 5 character random uh, code groups, yeah, I'm not going to be able to do that very fast. So it really depends on what it is that you're trying to copy. And we have a tendency to get really good at the things that we're most frequently practicing, either just for practice sake or on the air. So yeah, you bring up a great point, and it's one that's good for beginners to recognize up front. Think about the goals and the stepping stones to get there.
Yeah. And so let's talk about instant character recognition maybe a little bit first, just define that, because we have people who are listening right now or who will listen later who won't know what that means.
Yeah, so instant character recognition is your ability to very quickly hear a sound pattern like did all did, and without decoding that, just R should pop in your mind. There should be no real delay. As soon as you hear that sound pattern, it should just pop for you. It shouldn't take much, if any, effort to recognize it, and it should happen very quickly. The one thing that can be a little confusing with instant character recognition, um, it's not like an on-off switch. So once you begin to recognize the sound patterns for those characters, the time to recognize it actually drops to some threshold that allows you to use it in a meaningful way without Farnsworth timing or extra spacing between the characters and words. And the other point with instant character recognition, especially for those who are just learning CW, it's the most essential and difficult skill to acquire. I often tell people it's much easier to go from 30 to 50 words a minute than from 20 to 30. And a lot of people are confused by that, but it really is recognizing that instant character recognition is difficult. And knowing that up front is helpful because it can help you avoid getting overly frustrated, knowing that it takes time to master instant character recognition.
Yeah, and so when it comes to instant character recognition, you're brand new and you want to follow that course of action when to learn Morse code. Um, would you say? I mean, what would you say would be somebody's the best approach? Because I know that a lot of people, they're like, I don't care about. Well, they don't say that. They say I'm not going to worry about instant character recognition right now, and I'm not going to worry about a lot of other things. All I want to do is learn the characters. And so, is that a method that would work? I mean, is that something that you would recommend, or is that what's the approach there?
So that's a good question. Um, I think for most people, it's common to learn the characters initially and then begin to work on instant character recognition. It is definitely possible to work on that up front as you go. Um, a lot of people can find that overwhelming initially. So I think you get more, you feel like you're making more progress by focusing on learning all the characters first and then instant character recognition. There is something that you may find interesting, or your listeners, and it's something I've recognized really in about the last year and a half. And, you know, when people come to me uh, asking for advice or help, oftentimes I learn something helpful that I can share with others. And in this case, um, what I realized is that when you're head copying and you're focused on instant character recognition, there's actually two skills too. And typically we learn them, we work on both at the same time. So one is the instant character recognition, but the other part of this is what I call mental dynamics. And that is as you're copying each letter, the mental dynamics is the process of turning those string of letters into words and then those words into sentences. And it's for some people, especially those who have dyslexia, uh, they can master the instant character recognition relatively easier than the mental dynamics. And so I've created some additional specialized practice sets where instead of focusing on both at the same time, you can choose to dedicate a little bit of your practice session to just the mental dynamics. So these practice sets are literally just spoken letters. Like think if you had someone reading the newspaper to you, letter by letter. That's the kind of practice this is. And that allows someone to focus on the mental dynamics. The other thing that I've recognized is, and you may have had this experience too, if you mentor others, that as they're focused on mastering instant character recognition, there can be frustration that once they copy one, two, maybe three characters, it's like they forget the rest of the characters. And the thing that I love about these spoken letter by letter practice sets is it's a great diagnostic tool to see whether they need to truly focus on instant character recognition or whether are struggling with the mental dynamics. So if they listen to one of these practice sets and they're like, oh yeah, I can follow this easy. Well, then the problem is instant character recognition. And there's some approaches to working to really bring down that recognition time to help them have enough buffer mental capacity to be able to string those characters into words.
Yeah, that's I think my problem a lot. And so what you're saying is that you have practice sets, if I understand you correctly, that have no Morse code in them at all. It's just
Yes.
letters coming at you one at a
Yes.
time, and you're supposed to piece them together into words and then sentences.
Sentences. Yep. I
And
have. Mhm.
that's the That's the, what you call that again? The
So I call this the mental dynamics.
yeah.
I don't know if there's a better description for it. I haven't found anything, but that's what I call it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think you're right. I have experienced that, and I think I've talked to others who have as well, that they're trying to do two things at the same time. We're trying to get those, recognize the characters and assemble them into that dynamic, or that
y-
into words
y-
and stuff.
yes. The other thing that can be helpful for those who are learning Morse code is to recognize that there's multiple forms of copy. So instant character recognition, but then there's instant word recognition, and less commonly known is phonic copy. And that phonic copy can help with much longer words, like 9, 10 letters. Um, and it's just a fancy way of thinking about sounding out the word. Like, think back when you're in first grade and you're trying to read the word on the page by sounding it out. In a way, you can do the same thing. You have to keep an open mind. English is not all that phonetic. So even if you're copying the letters correctly, as you try sounding it out, it's often going to be wrong. So you have to keep an open mind, but it can be a great tool to try copying longer words or more difficult phrases. Like if you're practicing listening to an audiobook in CW.
Right. So then when you, well, first of all, let me say, given the fact that people learn differently, so we just have to make some generalizations here. But generally speaking, what are kind of some of the steps? I mean, that we get to the point where we're doing, word or sentence recognition, because those are later on, right? I mean, what's kind of the process where you would start and then where you would end up?
Yeah. So a lot of people, as we mentioned, initially just learn the characters. And so that means, if you hear that da-da-da, if you have a second or two, you can figure out what it is. So the challenge is mastering instant character recognition, bringing down that time that it takes to recognize each of the characters. And there's really a couple general approaches that work well. One is to crank up the character speed, because it's going to feel much easier as you're mastering instant character recognition at a slower speed. And then the other part of it is to incrementally bring down the space. So if you're practicing with Farnsworth spacing, push that spacing down. And you can think about, think if you're familiar with weightlifting. So, you can think about, for the easier sets, you can do more reps, or in Morse code, a longer stretch of time, so it's easier. And then if you bring down that spacing, then think about a shorter amount of time. And then again, your max that you can have some kind of mastery, it'll be the shortest time that you can tolerate. And over time, using both of those approaches, you'll be able to kind of cross the threshold of functional instant character recognition. The other thing is that here in the last few weeks, I've been thinking about a different type of practice set using something called contextual priming. And I've come up with a series of practice sets which might, I don't know, it's my intuition, might help people who are having some challenges mastering both instant character recognition and the mental dynamics. So in this case, think about like a 5-letter word. So I'll speak the first 3 letters, basically give you the answer, and then you have to copy the rest in Morse code. And then the next practice set of difficulty, spoken the first 3 letters, and you hear the whole word in Morse code, but you have to copy the rest to figure out what the word is. So that might be something. It's not yet published. I have tons and tons of stuff actually that's not yet published.
Yeah. Okay. So this what did you call it again? It's contextual learning. Is that what you said it called it?
So contextual priming is a really fascinating idea. So to step back, because that's a formal term, the thing is, think about like a rag chew, or think about the potent soda QSOs that you have. When you have some intuition about what is coming up next, that's context. If you have some idea about what it is that you're going to be receiving, that context really helps you be able to copy. The more unexpected something is, for all things being equal, it tends to be much more difficult to copy whatever it is that's coming up. And the fascinating thing is that, when we're on the air, we have oftentimes a lot of context about the QSO. Like, think about fairly common exchanges, things that people might tell you on the air. And you can kind of, as you get more experience, you really get some intuition on what people might be sending next. And that makes it much easier to copy. The other thing that's interesting with contextual priming is that it's a double-edged sword. It's basically your intuition on guessing what's coming up next. So when your intuition is correct, it makes it so much easier to copy. But when you're wrong, it actually makes it much more difficult to copy. And the more sure of what you think is coming up is, if it's wrong, you're much more likely to miss whatever that is. So it's a double-edged sword. These practice sets that I've created give you some experience off the air and in an incrementally difficult fashion that can be another tool in your toolbox to help master, copying phrases, words, or entire sentences.
Yeah. So let's see. So there's a couple things we got to cover here. First of all, your most recent thing that you were talking about, this contextual learning. So what you're saying is that, like, for example, if somebody were to send the word hot dog, but you were primed for, hey, it's something at a carnival, then you might be more likely to copy hot dog instead of hot water heater.
Yes. So to give you a couple examples from some practice sets I've created but not yet published, one with easy words. So the hint, or the priming you with context, an item in a bathroom. And the thing that would be sent in Morse code in this case would be towel, right? So if you're given a second to think about all the things that might be in a bathroom, that really narrows down the scope of what's coming up. I'll give you an example of a phrase and contextual priming for it. So an item used at a beach. Okay, so that's flip-flops is, a short noun phrase. An easy sentence with contextual priming, which is where I meant to go. The theme is seasons, and the sentence is fall leaves are red. So it should give you an idea that the context is not so strong that you actually are guessing what it is that's going to be sent, but it narrows down the scope of anything under the sun.
Right. So that's why. So you're saying that you have created, or are thinking about creating, some blocks.
Oh, I've created them.
You created them. This contextual blocks of code or not code. These blocks of training material where you can get that contextual primer before you get the actual word and start trying to copy all that. Yeah.
Yes, and you can think about if you are given the beginning of a sentence, you can have some intuition about what the next words might be, and giving people experience maybe before they have that mastery can help them really focus on mastering this kind of prediction or intuition for what's coming up, because it really is that double-edged sword. Sometimes your intuition leads you astray. Sometimes it actually it is what
Yeah.
you think it is.
I get that exactly. I've experienced that too. And here's an example. When I was in the CW Ops classes, they encouraged us to frequently have QSOs, and those QSOs followed the same structure. And so this is what you're talking about. We knew that we were going to
Yes.
get an antenna of some type as the station. We knew that we were going to get weather, and so it made it easier. You know, when you hear WX, you know that it's going to be snow, or it's going to be rain, or it's going to be something like that. In fact, what you're talking about, I've often heard the letter S, and I was so confident it was snow, but it was not. It was showers
Yes.
or
Oh
something else.
gosh.
But yeah, this is I think what we're talking about here.
Yeah, and you bring up another interesting point, that it can feel easier when you have some intuition about what's coming up. So when you have the context, it really reduces that cognitive load, which allows you to really focus on the meaning, or be able to have a more in-depth understanding of what's being sent, or maybe reduce the likelihood that that you'll miss.
Yeah, cool. All right, well, so we're already, believe it or not, I can't believe this, we're already 30 minutes in. So what I want to do is I want to go back to one thing that we kind of I didn't quite feel like we completely covered. But also, while we're doing that, I want to invite those in the chat who have a question or a comment that they'd like to provide, to do that. And I'll highlight those and bring them up, and so we'll kind of maybe make a break. We'll finish up with this last little bit, and then I'll look in the chat and we'll address some of those questions and those comments, and then we'll move on to another topic. So chat guys in the chat, if you have something, your question or comment, please go ahead and leave that now. So Kurt, what I wanted to do was go back again to, I think that I misunderstood. I think I had it wrong as far as the progression of how someone learns Morse code a little bit, because in my mind I'm like, okay, so you learn the characters, and then you do instant character recognition, and then you do word recognition, and then eventually you get to a certain speed, and it's kind of all mumble jumbled. It's not really like that, because you're saying there's two things that you've got to learn: the characters, and then you've got to learn how to put
The
that all
mental
together.
dynamics.
And that's the way to look at it, I think. And both of those tracks, I think, are from the beginner all the way to, sending 50 words a minute. You've got to follow both of those tracks, I think, rather than yeah, go ahead.
And one thing that I think you point out is that there are different paths that you can take to master copying Morse code. So one of the things, this is just my intuition, I don't know this for a fact, but in reading historical documents, my intuition is, if I was starting over again, I would actually focus on instant word recognition, at least learn a couple dozen words or abbreviations first, and not knowing any of the characters at all. And the reason why is that it really primes your brain to focus on sound patterns up front, because both instant word recognition, instant character recognition, suffix, prefix, instant recognition, all of this is just sound patterns. And if I think part of the problem, or part of the challenge when we are initially learning instant character recognition, there's almost a desire, just an irresistible urge to try to break that down into the dits and das, and that really slows you down. So
Yes.
If you can learn some instant word recognition early on, you're not going to be breaking it down. So I've actually developed a taste of instant word recognition course that teaches you 25 words at I think it's 40 words a minute. And you might think that's crazy if you have only 20 word per minute character speed, or maybe have no proficiency, but it's no harder. It's really when you think about that sound pattern, our minds are primed to recognize sounds as within a certain time frame. Like, think about every word that I'm speaking. They're pretty short. They're very complex sounding things. And Morse code are it's just sound patterns too. So a long-winded answer to say there's actually multiple ways of reaching your goal of full proficiency, head copy. But often it really is starting with learning the characters and then focusing on instant character recognition. And I think it's helpful to recognize that there's two things that typically people are working to master. And especially if you have dyslexia, be very cognizant that they are two different skills, that there's this mental dynamics that's not often talked about or recognized, and that as you gain instant character recognition, that these other forms of copy, that when you're using them, it's not either or. You're typically using all of the forms of copy that you know at the same time. And so it's not instant character recognition or instant word recognition. If you have mastery of both to some degree, you're going to be using both at the same time.
Yeah, cool. Okay, let's take a break here and talk to those who are watching live right now. Let me start here with a good friend of mine, Brian. He says, "Evening, Charlie, and to Kurt. Thank you, sir. I've done 1,000 Pota Hunter contacts since September thanks to your YouTube videos."
Oh, wow.
That's great.
That's amazing.
Sue and Chuck are good friends also, and they're just saying hello. Thank you. The quarantine Catholic says, "Love your videos. Have helped me. Thank you for all your hard work on the videos." And boy, is there a lot of hard work, right? You have.
Yeah, there is a lot of work.
Yeah. Let's see. Steve T. Kurt is much younger than I thought he would be.
I'll take that as a compliment.
Very good. James KI5OEB says, "You have to practice what you're bad at to get good at it."
Yes.
That's so true.
Yes. Actually, that brings up a wonderful point. There's a phrase that I like to challenge people with. It's to become comfortable with being uncomfortable. And the reason why I say that is exactly this, that you can't just practice something because it's easy. It's going to be enjoyable, likely. Challenging yourself and consistently practicing where you're not getting 90+% correct. There's really, for me, I think about 75% accuracy is kind of a good accuracy to aim for as far as how much to challenge, or maybe short, brief bursts of even more challenging. But if you're getting 90 or above accuracy, probably not learning that much.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for sure. And I would just emphasize, my take on this comment is, I would emphasize the fourth word, practice. When you think of practice, you typically do it on a constant or consistent schedule, and it's not something that you hit here and there. Otherwise, I don't believe it's called practice. So that's another point, I think. All right, the next comment is from Ronan. He says, "Thank you for your videos, Kurt. They are a fantastic resource. They've really helped me in my CW journey."
That's wonderful.
It is. Now, by the way, there are videos, but then there are also audio files, right?
Yeah. So one of the things that I've recognized is that different people have different constraints on when and how they can practice. And so I've released all of the material on YouTube, obviously, but then I also have bulk file downloads. So if you have an MP3 device or MP3 player, mobile phone, tablet, whatever, that may not be connected to the internet, you can go ahead and load those on there. And I also have a podcast series. So if you have a podcast player on your phone or some other device, you can also listen to it in that form. And then for those who really need MP3 files, you can send me an email. And if you have Dropbox, paid version, it's very large, about 750 gigabytes. I can give you access to all the original files. And then for those who, on an increasingly rare case, if you don't have access to high-speed internet and really want all the audio files, I do offer those at cost on flash drive. I'm more than happy to mail them to you.
Very good. So there's a lot of different options. I personally do the file download to my phone and then just play them. They're saved on my phone, so I can, it doesn't matter if there's a connection or not. That's the way I like this best. But everybody's different, so it's very nice that you have different formats. Okay, so the next comment is from L. Timely. My goal for 2024. It's very good. This is a great show. Thank you.
Thank you.
Then we have Patrick. He says, I have been trying the contextual priming and speed racing with contextual priming. Yeah, go ahead.
We didn't talk about that specifically.
Yeah, let me finish the sentence and then this comment, and then we'll go into that, because my friend, or one of my co-hosts, actually, Brian, he loves the speed racing stuff. So I have been trying the contextual priming and speed racing with contextual priming sample files that Kurt has made available to the Long Island CW Club. They are great, very helpful in my quest to master head copy. Okay, so what's the deal here? What do we miss?
So a small backstory. So one thing I love, I do not take offense with critical feedback. Critical feedback is how we get better. And, I always like to know, is there an opportunity to improve? And the contextual priming practice sets that I've made available for download, there's Bob K4RLC. He's a neuroscientist, and he was challenging me to maybe think about applying contextual priming with fading. Again, very academic, but it just means that the context that you're giving would diminish, and it would help you transition away from having no crutches per se.
Right, yeah.
And in trying to come up with a way of executing this within a single practice set, I ended up realizing an interesting opportunity to take the speed racing and apply some contextual priming. So the idea, or the format, it's a little complicated to say speaking it, but the idea is, think if I gave you a sea-dwelling creature, right, as a hint in voice, and then had a faster speed, about 1.3 times the base speed, whatever base speed you chose. I sent lobster, okay? And maybe you don't get it because it's probably difficult if you're practicing, at that base speed. And then I would give you a second hint, has a hard shell. And then I would send it again, a lobster in Morse code at the base speed. Pretty good chance if you're somewhat comfortable at that speed. And then if you miss it, then I give you lobster spoken, and then you hear lobster again at the higher speed. So it's a variation of speed racing where you have some contextual context to help you kind of orientate your thinking as far as what might be possible. And to tell you the truth, I just finished creating these yesterday. That's how recent this is. And I love this practice set in particular because it feels like a game. To tell you the truth, it's one of the funnest types of practice sets that I've come up with. And while I don't know that I'm going to publish all the contextual priming practice sets that I've created and have released for anyone that's interested in downloading them and providing feedback, this one in particular definitely is going to get published. I think people are going to love it. Um, I like it. There's two practice sets I've created so far using this format. One is with easy words and then challenging words, things that you probably have never heard in Morse code before. And it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, cool. So just for a little background, also contextual priming. We already know that we've talked about that. Just real quick, speed racing. What that is basically you start at, and you probably picked up on this. You start at an extremely high speed or a very high speed, and you can choose what speed that is, and then it's like drops down. I think 3 or 4 different times it'll drop the
Yes.
speed until
Yes.
you can get it. And so you try to get it at that highest speed. If you can't, then it'll slow, and then eventually you'll get it.
Yes. Yeah. And so you can kind of see how this is a cross between speed racing, which has been out there for probably a couple of years now, and then this newer idea of applying contextual priming. So,
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, Celeste's next comment is thoughts on mnemonics.
so mnemonics. So I'm trying to make sure that I'm clear about this. So the idea is uh, like you hear da 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 and you think dog, D as in dog. Is that maybe what this is going for, or what do you think?
I'm assuming so. So we'll maybe we'll come back to this one. Juano, El Juano. I'm sure I'm L. So L, clarify this question, and we'll pick it up at the end of our chat here. So let's go in the next one. This is very insightful for a brand new Morse code starter. Well, that's good. Glad to hear that. And then I need to learn instant character recognition again, brand new. Very good. Yes, instant character recognition is the key. I would say one of them, right? One of the most important. Yes.
And unfortunately, it's the hardest to master.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. WA7JNJ, also a good friend. Thank you, Kurt, for YouTube training. After learning to send CW, listening to your 20/10 words per minute course helped me to finally hear and understand last July. Now, time
Wonderful.
to refresh and start listening again. Yes, it never ends, right? It's a lifelong pursuit. All right, let's see. K9KJ, I recommend Kurt's videos to lots of folks. Kudos to Kurt for putting them together. Kudos as well. I agree. Okay, here's Hamreader 2.0. Jason, I've been listening to Kurt's videos for over a year now. Great stuff. When I take the time to do it, I learn a lot. And that's just it, right? When I take the time. Jason's a good friend, and he's actually live right after this stream in about 15-20 minutes. So go ahead and check him out after this one. I don't know what his topic is today, but he's always follows me. Let's see. The next one is Jim. I think spending a lot of time listening to code on the air once you have mastered the characters. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Unless your goal really is just to read books and see in Morse code, listening on air, that is absolutely great advice. Yes.
Yeah, I would have to say you, Kurt, are the only person that I know of that has read a book in Morse code.
It can be fun. It's
quite the interesting thing. Yeah. Okay, we got Frank in the house, and that's his signature. That's what he is. So good to see you, Frank. Let's see if there's anybody else here that has a good comment or question. Here's a good friend of mine, W4MPS. Great videos. I've been licensed since 1964 and always strive to improve my CW. That's great. I listen to Kurt's work in my car all the time. Many thanks. And Mark and I have been out on some excursions together and sending Morse code as companionship. So thanks for leaving the comment, Mark. All right, that's it. The comments and questions. Oh wait, no, we got more here. Let's see. There's the L is lit. So let's see. That was the same. Is that a clarification of this? Thoughts on mnemonics, or maybe it isn't. Let me see.
I think I need to look that up. That word does not.
Yeah. Daniel says Morse Code Ninja has been super helpful for me. Got me able to head copy, and now I'm around 40 words per minute. It's good for you, buddy.
Wonderful.
Yep. Kevin CW on. I'm making great strides because of your videos. Very good feedback. Dalen says thank you as well. Good info. And then yeah, he says, yep, that's it. He says that the L is lit is the clarification. I still don't understand the question exactly, but do you?
So if he really is referring to the idea that
I think I know what it is now.
Go ahead, you clarify it for me. What is it?
Okay, so thoughts on learning Morse code by using things like instead of the letter R and hearing, you would listen to the word the letter R and you would hear barabbit or a light is lit or
Yeah. So yes, I have a strong opinion on this.
okay, go
Please don't do it. Please don't do it. So here's the reason why. One, I don't know how. I can probably count at least on two hands. The people who have learned Morse code using that technique kick themselves for years trying to let go of it, because any crutch that you use early on is very difficult to let go. And those crutches are really going to hold you back from achieving speeds, say 20 plus, 30 plus words per minute. So trying to just learn it outright from the get-go with no crutch is going to save you a lot of time in the long run to achieve your proficiency goals. And same analogous thing for those who learn Morse code at 5 words a minute character speed. Oh my, many of them, not all, many, get stuck at around 10 to 13 words a minute because they can't make that jump to instant character recognition. It's so painful and difficult for many people that learn Morse code, decoding the dits and das, and just learning the characters even at 30 words a minute saves you so much hassle and grief compared, even though it might seem much more difficult initially, it's not. It's really not.
I was a victim of that. That's how I learned, was with those. And I will tell you, I am still struggling with a few things and letting go of some of that at 40 words a minute.
Yes.
Still in my mind, I can hear a light is lit when I hear the L at 40 words a minute. Yes.
Really?
Yes. So I'm you know, I learned the way I learned, so it's just what it is, right? But
yes,
that's good advice. All right, here's another one. I have instant characterization and word recognition at about 18 to 22 words per minute. However, sometimes my mind just blanks out when on the air and I miss a few characters or words and random. How do I tackle this issue?
So that's a great question. So one, this is normal, and it happens to everyone. And even if this is old hat to you, QSB can effectively cause the same thing. So just asking for a repeat of whatever you miss, there is nothing wrong, no reason to be embarrassed. Just ask for a repeat. Charlie, I think you would probably say the same thing, but feel free to answer.
Yeah, for sure. It's exactly how I would have answered it. Exactly that. So yeah, go ahead.
The other thing I'll mention is that anxiety can greatly decrease your accuracy. And for some people, if you're on the air and you miss like a word or two, your anxiety starts going up, and it can make it even more likely that you'll miss even more. So getting comfortable and knowing up front that it's okay not to have perfect copy, because in most cases that's not reasonable. We're not professionals.
Yep. This is also what I was just going to say, is that I don't know of anybody that actually copies 100% of everything that is sent to them. I always miss words here and there, and sometimes I have to repeat, and sometimes I'm just like, well, that probably wasn't important, and just go on.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. There's another question here. how can I download your files for MP3 so I can use them on my iPod? So there's kind of two things in there, I think, right?
Yes. So a couple things. So on the practice page, I don't know if you're providing links later, but
Yeah.
on the Morse Code Ninja practice page, towards the top, there's some hot links or quick links. And one of them is one called bulk download. And it'll take you to a section and you choose which speed that you want. These are very large downloads. So the 20 words a minute one I'm looking at is 16 gigs. So that zip file, you'll download it onto your computer. Obviously, have to unpack it, and then depending on what kind of device you're using, you'll need to transfer it to that device. If you are using Apple devices, you may want to import it as an audiobook. The one advantage to doing that is that it will remember where you left off. Otherwise, you may either have to jump randomly into the file or manually remember where you left off and jump to that. Because what you don't want to do is keep going back to the beginning, because instead of learning whatever you're focused on, you'll just memorize the content, and that's not going to help you. So just be aware of that one caveat.
Where's that? Where were you looking so I can put that in the chat right now? For the downloads.
Oh, yep. Let me send you the link.
You can maybe just put it in chat, maybe, right? You have comments on your.
I wasn't even looking at that. Yeah, sure. Oh, wait a second. I have to connect.
Okay. If not, then I can do it.
Okay, I think it went. So this is the Ninja practice page. Says it failed to post.
Okay, well, I will post it then. So I have Morse Code.ninja as the main page, and then there was a place somewhere for the downloads, right? You were talking about.
Yeah. So you click the practice tab.
At the top, practice. Okay.
And then you'll see kind of those bulleted list, and then you'll see bulk download.
Yep, there it is.
The fifth one.
Yep. And so I'll just paste that in. People should be able to follow along as well, but I got it in there. Good. All right. So was that covered? Hopefully that was covered as well, fully.
Yep.
So I guess, we've got, 6 minutes left.
So you want to hear a fun story real quick?
Let's do it. Yeah.
So I always like challenges. Here recently, someone challenged me. They're like, I love the Ngram practice sets, which are the most common 2, 3, 4, and 5 words. These are immensely helpful. Look for them in the practice sets. And he's like, really, to transition to full sentences, I need longer. So I need the most common 6, 7, 8, 9 word phrases. The thing is, this wasn't known publicly. And, I'm a software developer by trade. And I'm like, well, this would require downloading the entire internet or all the books in the world and then analyzing the text. I'm like, that doesn't seem possible. And, we're now in an era of generative AI, and there are open source large language models. And I thought, surely the data for that's got to be somewhere. And it turns out the University of California made available the entire Reddit database, millions and millions of conversations, 8 million files, 55 gigabytes worth of text. So I wrote some software to find those most common Ngrams. I was like, that's amazing that that's even possible. And those are now going to be released. They are available if you want to find them on the practice page. Just click the sentences filter, and you'll see the sets of 6 words, sets of 7 words, sets of 8, 9. But in the coming weeks, I'll mark those YouTube videos as public, which is how most people realize that there's something new. But you can get to it already. But that was an amazing little adventure.
Yeah, I can't believe you were able to, that's actually been done now. but yeah, we're living in those kind of times, aren't we? AI, generative AI is great.
Yes.
Yeah,
Um,
especially for the academic stuff. There's a lot of really good academic stuff that the AI has been able to really make happen.
yes. And I'll give you a couple of quick examples of really long phrases that are common. I bet you've heard these numerous times. The end of the world as we know it,
Yeah,
super common. The land of the free and the home of,
the brave.
right? So that's a 12 gram common 12 gram. So it's amazing how common these really are. So you can see practicing with that would be much easier than some random part of a sentence.
Yeah, yeah. That's this. So you're going to be releasing those then very soon, huh?
Yeah, they are available right now. You
You're
can
good.
get to them, but on YouTube, you're probably aware you can have unlisted videos
Yes.
and then you have public. Well, I don't want to overwhelm people who are subscribed to the channels, so I just release one practice set, the
Right. Right.
15 through 50 words a minute variations, one per week to make sure I don't overwhelm them. But there is a lot of new content. You just have to know where to look for it.
Yeah. Very good. Okay, so we are down to just 3 minutes left, and what I'm going to do is take a minute. Uh, Pardon me, Kurt, but I just want to do one announcement here, real quick, that somebody asked me to do, which I think is a worthy announcement. So I'll get that taken care of. Many of you may not know that this year the Earth Moon Earth conference, the EME conference 2024, is going to be in the United States in Trenton, New Jersey. And so this conference, if you are someone who has been wanting to get into EME or has a fascination with EME, this conference is probably the thing for you. And especially since this year it's in the United States, this is your chance. And there are in the future, I think we're going to have maybe a guest come on our channel or somebody else's, one of my friends' channels, to interview them on this whole Earth Moon Earth conference in Trenton. So, but just keep an eye on that. I'll probably mention it a time or two more. So, with that, I think that we need to remind you also that Jason's live stream is in a minute or two. So head on over there after we're done here. Kurt, it was such a pleasure to have you on again. I hope you don't feel like you're being picked on because this is the third time you've been on the channel. However, every time it's some of the material's the same, but much of it's different, and I always learn something. So it's an amazing. You're just an amazing guy. I really appreciate it, and I'm glad that we have a relationship and know each other. So thanks for coming on.
Well, thank you. It is always a pleasure. I hope to run into you again in person. It was delightful talking to you, I think, for an hour and a half that day.
Yeah, it was a long time. It was good, though. I enjoyed it.
It was good.
Okay, any parting thoughts on learning Morse code? What are your overall takeaways you think that we should let people know?
I think one of the main takeaways for practice is it needs to be fun. You don't want to think of it as drudgery. Really, the fun, in my opinion, of learning Morse code is the journey itself. It's not so much the destination. Think about, if you're in classes in LACW or CW Ops, think about the relationships and the fun that you're having. And I'll leave you with this. Here recently, a gentleman in his 90s, wrote to me, and he mentioned how he was glad that he did not learn CW 50 years ago, because he gets the enjoyment of learning it now, today. And that really cements the point I'm trying to make, that you can only learn it once. So please enjoy it, because it is fun.
Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, everybody. Thanks for those of you who joined in chat. Thanks for those of you who will be listening later. I appreciate all of your support. I appreciate Kurt's support. And thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time. Thank you, Kurt.
Thank you. See you, Charlie.